Hi, my name is Brittany, and I will be introducing you to Mrs. We'll refer to her as AJO. So Mrs. AJO, Miss AJO, is a 74-year-old female who lives independently by herself. She is originally from California, but now lives in a small town next to her family. Her eldest son lives there in Utah, and along with his 8 kids, and then her eldest son has grandkids as well that live there. Um, Prior to meeting AJO and doing this assignment, I was really unsure how we were going to accomplish this. I just had moved across the country with my 2 children and was not prepared for this type of um, assignment and not knowing many people around at all. But I was able to get in contact with Miss AJO, and she was more than willing to do visits with me. And because of the distance, we did do them via over the phone. She couldn't quite figure out how to do Zoom. So we ended up just having really long phone conversations, which was good. Timing was hard because she was 2 hours ahead of me. So figuring out times and whatnot, but she was more than willing. I just had started a new job as well, so finding time between training and getting kids ready and starting this new semester it definitely was a challenge, but we were able to work through it, and AJO was incredible at helping me with time management and getting these assignments in promptly and timely, so shout out to her. I think we had a lot of assessment tools that we were able to utilize to find information that was very helpful, especially since we were over the phone. She did understand email, and so was able to email her if she needed more clarification on things. I was able to email her those answers to her questions, and so that she could just kind of funny. She liked to do her own research as well, instead of just asking me. She was intrigued to even look up some of her own pathologies of things and different examples of things that she could implement into her daily life. She was very AJO was very easy to talk to. She's almost 75, but she is very very with it, very here in the now, oriented to time and place. Like she's great. She doesn't have any cognitive deficits as far as like long term or anything like that some of our elder population unfortunately have. But she did have hard of hearing in one of her ears, and it never failed. She'd always put the phone up to one of those ears she couldn't hear very well out of, and she'd always just chuckle and laugh and put it on her good ear. We did have to repeat several times our different questions and tools, or clarify kind of what I was asking so that she could understand. Some of those medical terminologies I think we forget, and we start rambling on in those. But she was very patient with me, so that was really neat. We did get to talk a lot on the phone. We became almost like girl pals, where you just feel like you can just talk and talk and talk. So we really had to watch the time frame. But AJO was able to comprehend, and she expressed her feelings. She was able to express some of those things that she had a hard time with as she is starting to get older, and she's not as mobile, and her body doesn't move the way she wants it to move anymore. But normal wear and tear as we start to get older, and we just had a lot of conversations where she was able to just kind of let out maybe some frustrations, as well as she was very open about her current health and her medical history. She does things more on the natural side of conservative, but does see her doctor for, or primary care provider for, those things that had needed to be dealt with, versus naturally. um, utilizing those standard assessments gave us kind of a general idea of where she was, but also like of where she wasn't. Like she, on some of these assessment tools, she wasn't in those um, deficit portions, or she wasn't scoring high on um, high risks or for falls and whatnot. She was able to kind of go through these assessments, but also like as we're going through assessments, understanding that where she is and where she is not, like where she doesn't want to be having any deficits, and then she would ask questions of, hey, how can I help stay out of those? And that would lead into another, either another assessment tool or just another discussion that would lead into the next week's um, discussion or topic of mobility or whatever that next thing was. It was like, yeah, we'll talk about that soon. So she was very excited to get on to the other thing, but also she was absorbing all the information that we were talking about. Let's see. She definitely did not like the fact that her appearance was changing. She did not like gray hair. She absolutely hated it. So she would continually dye her hair as she started to get older and those gray hairs show up. She would continually dye her hair. And she mentioned that she doesn't even think her grandkids knew what color her hair was because she'd always dyed it. But, and she had long hair, she expressed, for many, many years. But as she was getting older, she realized that even with, she has a recent injury, so even with that recent injury, she wasn't able to get her arm up to even put her hair back into her little clips that she liked. And so she decided that she couldn't keep up financially. She is retired, so she couldn't keep up financially with dyeing her hair, and that cutting it short was easier for her to manage, especially with some injuries that she's had over the years in her arms, and the ability to get her arm up and behind her head was a little more difficult. The real big issue she really expressed was that ability to reach her arm behind her head or up above her head to be able to do her hair, or the ability to keep moving without her arms fatigue, enabling her to not be able to garden or do yard work that she loves. She had to hire out one of the neighbor kids to do her yard maintenance because she wasn't able to finish. She has her grandkids come over and pick stuff out of the garden or weed, and so those things she realizes that she's not able to do as much, or get on her knees and pull weeds all day long. You just can't do that all day in the summer or late spring. But she is pretty healthy for a 75-year-old. She doesn't have a lot of past medical history. I mean, she's fairly healthy, just more of a degradation of bones and injuries that are now resurfacing that didn't properly heal as she got older, and so those type of things are now taking over. But she is what is the word? Hell bent on being independent. She lives by herself. She owns her own home. She's just retired not too long ago, and she's just living life right now. She's not sure how to be relaxed and not do a whole bunch of things at one time, but she she is still bakes and makes everything from scratch, and still makes time to travel now and see her great grandkids and her grandkids. So she's still kicking it. She's still holding on to that independence. AJO is just very full of life. I don't think she thought that she'd ever be by herself for this long. She's not been with a companion in a very long time, so she's doing pretty well for herself, but she would prefer to not be alone, which I think is a large consensus of have the same thoughts. I don't think we were meant to be alone, but I think educating not only our elderly population, but just individuals we come in contact with about preventative care and health maintenance, throughout your life, are those things that are going to help with degradation or things that happen as we start to deteriorate just from gravity and getting older, and our bodies and organs and insides don't function the way they used to. Um, Implementing realistic plans and talking to individuals as a unique person, because everyone is different. Um, right, talking to AJO, she doesn't have dementia or Alzheimer's or any of those cognitive deficits, and she's not a high risk for falls, so she hasn't experienced hip replacements so I was very fortunate to talk to AJO, who, as an individual, realistically, we were able to go over things that she could still implement and that she could still apply in her daily life to still practice preventative care, which was neat. Go back. So we did talk about hearing age or font abilities to be larger. She does wear glasses, but she wasn't gung ho on the hearing aids. She is all about aesthetics, and she didn't want to. She's fine. She's like, I can just turn and put my hand up. It'll be fine. They can hear. They can talk out of my good ear. She's funny. But she does wear prescription glasses that she does follow up with her eye doctor, yearly. And then she was able to change settings on her phone that she actively uses. She can text, and she calls, and she emails on the daily. So she knows how to adjust her font as needed to help assist in her ability to be able to read and communicate. Um, let's see. So AJO had previously installed rails along her steps. It snows where she lives, and so to decrease that risk of falling, she had put those rails down. She has a pail of salt that she keeps right by her railing so she can salt the sidewalk. So she salts her sidewalk, and she did have a recent fall because of the ice, not technically at her home, but while she was on vacation during the holidays, and she did land on her arm, and so she will be following up with their primary care to see what their next course of action is, if it's surgery or just bracing and whatnot. So we did discuss that current injury that she is dealing with. We talked about different ways to modify the use of that current arm, but also how to become a little more ambidextrous and utilize the other arm as well to do her daily activities. She's pretty precautious. She's aware of her surroundings. She doesn't keep rugs and stuff around. She had put up the railing. She does live by herself, so she has installed security cameras and upgraded her cell phone so that she could text and call. She has her son on speed dial, and she has an emergency contact list already on her fridge, and she's a pretty funny lady, but she is taking necessary action to make sure that she's safe and that things are out in the open and present, so that if someone were to come in and help her, that that information would be readily available. She didn't have any family members or friends present that I was aware of. There's never other voices or anything. I mean, she lives alone. She does have neighbors and friends and family that do live close, but she's pretty independent. She expressed her relationship with her children, and she has 4 children, and then she has lots of grandkids and great-grandkids. She has delegated to a specific family member the information that she would like things to happen, or if she's unable to express her wishes, that she's already designated someone who has that information. Currently, she can express her needs and wants. She states she has never been able, she hasn't been one to hold back her thoughts or feelings, and so if she has something to say, she'll say it. AGO did state that if she ever has some medical concerns or questions, or if she gets home from the physician and she doesn't understand the terminology or language of test results and whatnot, she is able to call her daughter-in-law, who is a midwife, and then also she has a granddaughter who is a nurse, and so she has no, um, she has, she doesn't mind calling and asking questions to figure things out. Like I said, she was very active in our discussions, so she was more than willing to look up things or and ask appropriate questions to understand what we were talking about. And then she was implementing and asking ways that she could implement or suggest ways of implementing things into her life. Let's see, as a nurse, I think that is one of our biggest jobs, is to educate, answer questions, and be able to know, even if the resources that are being asked aren't in our state or where we currently are. I mean, there's always a way to find them, and just even taking some time to look things up. I mean, I sent her several things that she had questions on or wanted more ideas on how to accomplish or clarification on whatever we were discussing, and I would send her a link, and she would be able to go in, and if she had questions the next time we met, we would just talk about them and answer them. So she's pretty active in her day-to-day activities, as well as looking out for preventative cares while she still can. And those are her words, not mine. So, but there are some individuals that age well and some that age faster than others, and those different things can be due to different lifestyles and the environment you grow up or live in. I mean, time. Decades ago, things were different than they are now. Preventative care, nutrition play a huge role in how we endure through the rest of our later years or the rest of our lifespan. The elder I chose she is doing exceptionally well. She has the normal wear and tear, but she is got that fire still, and she's still going at almost 75. So, I mean, she'll be 75 later this year, but she definitely is doing well, and so I think that is a blessing for her. There are others that aren't doing as well and suffer from dementia or Alzheimer's and or different pathologies that have kind of changed their quality of life and quantity of life and how they pursue their years they have ahead of them. I think it's important for us to remember to be patient, especially when we're working with an elder population that have hard of hearing or are not as cognitively or not as cognitively there. We have to learn to be patient, but also implementing the importance of education, because if you don't know, how are you supposed to make informed decisions? Or if you don't know, you don't understand. It's really important to learn how to have a conversation in not just medical terms, but layman terms, but in a level of understanding and love and a genuineness to help someone understand what's going on. Listening before you just make a decision. Sometimes the conversation is nonverbal, and you're watching for physical cues. You're watching for maybe just listening to the things that they're telling you and noticing and being intuitive to what's happening around them, and just being kind. I think unfortunately with elder population we could get frustrated, or we're trying to let them know something and it's important but they don't understand. So sometimes those kinds of things, we need to take a step back and sometimes just listen, be kind, and utilize those nursing critical thinking, because I believe that all those things implemented is part of critical thinking. We're all going to be in the same position later in life, and that whole golden rule, do unto others what you'd have do unto you, is pretty relevant. I mean, how would you like your mom or your dad to be treated unkindly just because they didn't understand, or someone just woke up on the wrong side of the bed and didn't have any patience today? Those things come to mind, but I think it's really important that this little lesson has taught me to continue to implement these in my nursing career as I move forward in different positions and in ways of communicating and being able to talk to all genres of people that we have here still in that word taken care of. Um, so yeah, there are my references there. I thank you for listening, and have a great night.